Hi BookTube, and welcome to a tag video. As I said in my previous content, tag that is not a tag. What do I mean by that? Well, for today's content, we have to thank Gavin at Genre Books 23 because this was his idea. It didn't start out as a tag originally, but then he let other people go ahead with the idea and it kind of became a tag anyway. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll read what Gavin has said about it and then also link to his videos in my description box. So here's what Gavin said. He said, I'll be posting my final bookshelf tour this week, so I'm putting out this special fantasy list of the shelf I would really want. Almost anything goes, and I'd invite anyone to post their personal top 10. And in addition, Gavin had a few rules for creating this fantasy shelf. Rule number 1, money is no object. That's a nice rule. I like that rule immediately. Rule 2, you must choose books that you can actually read. So I can't choose books written in a language I don't yet know. Rule 3, the books that I choose, they must exist somewhere in the world. I can't imagine an unfinished manuscript or a lost novel being discovered or something like that, okay? So those are our only rules. Well, I tell you what, if money was no object, I stopped at rule 1, frankly, because if money is no object, I'm a bit of a miser when it comes to buying books. I want a lot of books, but I don't like paying a lot of money for them if I don't have to. So I could easily fill a bookshelf, I think, for about between 30 and 40 pounds sterling. And I'd have a lot of books. I'd have way more than 10. And because I know where I could get them cheaply. So to my mind, if money is no object, what I really, really want is the ultimate book shopping experience. And more than that, I'd like some really good company to be with me, someone who also loves to browse and shop for books. Okay, so what I'd really like to do for my version of this tag is I would like to invite Meg from Books Off the Beaten Path, because she mentioned when she did this tag video that she would love to come to England and do some book shopping. And I thought, well, Meg, I tell you what, with my no object, unlimited money, what I would love to do is fly you from Tulsa to London. And then what we would do, I think, is have kind of a 2-part book shopping adventure. And we'd stay in London to start with, and we'd stay at the St. Pancras Renaissance Hotel. And I'm going to put a picture of it up on screen because it's way more beautiful than my ugly old bookshelves. So here we go. It's gorgeous. Let me see. When I first arrived in England in 1986, this hotel was disused. And it broke my heart because the Victorian Gothic, it's not Victorian. I think it's more early. No, I take it back. It would have been late Victorian. I'm faffing about now with history. People are like, who cares? It's beautiful. It is. It's a beautiful hotel inside and out. And what we're going to do is we would stay in one of the premium suites, which is in the Chambers wing. Now they cost about $400 per night to stay in. That's way out of so beyond my budget. It's not funny. So this is why we have to save it for the money is no object tag. So we'd stay there, and that would be our base camp for, I don't know, I think probably at least a couple of days just to explore all the new and secondhand bookshops around London, because that's where you're most likely, if you're looking for something specific, it's in London that you're most likely to get that. Okay, and the other thing we do with my no object unlimited money is anything Meg buys while she's here, we'll just have that shipped back home. So she doesn't have to worry about lugging it, how's she going to get it back on the plane? Nope, none of that. And also, I must point out, this hotel was built around St. Pancras Railway Station. So there is the possibility, if we wanted, to take trains up north if there was some other book shopping place that we wanted to catch. But I don't know about Meg, but I'm a better country person than a city person. So probably after 2, I think maximum 3 days in London, I'm going to start yearning for greener spaces. And that's when we're going to head out into the country. So the second stage of this book shopping trip would take us to that book town that Meg mentioned, or she mentioned in her video, but she couldn't think of the name. And of course, it's Hay-on-Wye. Hay-on-Wye, which sits right on the England-Wales border in Herefordshire. That's where we'd go. It's astoundingly green. The town is tucked into a little valley, so there's all these incredible Welsh hills on all sides of it. It's beautiful. And we would stay right in the heart of a town. There's a property in Hay-on-Wye that I could never afford to stay in. It's a big Victorian 5-bedroom townhouse, and it's right in the heart of the town. The windows, a lot of the windows look out on Hay-on-Wye's iconic clock tower. If you've been to Hay-on-Wye, you know that clock tower, right? And you can see all that from the photo that I'm showing here. And it's a big place, right? I said 5 bedrooms. So Meg, we could think about inviting, I don't know if you had a friend that you know really loves, who's always wanted to go to Hay, or we could talk to agree on inviting our favorite booktubers to come and join us, and we could have a proper book shopping, book talking jamboree. And this would be your room, Meg, by the way. This is the bedroom where the windows overlook the clock tower. And I thought, yeah, you can have that. Although you got to let me come in just to see out the windows. Other than that, I'm fine. It's yours. The house also has a study, and it's just a perfect place for filming content. Now, if we fill all 5 of these bedrooms with booktube creators, then, I can see there'll be some arguments. Maybe we might need an appointment diary for that room. The only good thing is if the weather is nice, this house has a beautiful private garden, which would also be a lovely location for filming. Now, the only stipulation I would say is I would recommend not going to Hay-on-Wye during the Hay Festival. That's because the town just gets too crowded. The restaurants are all crowded. The bookshops are already crowded. It doesn't become, it's still fun. There are lots of events going on. And if you do like to hear writers talking about their books or get your book signed, then yes, it's lovely. But in terms of being in the town itself and book shopping, it's a little bit crowded for my liking. I would pick a different week in May or June. I would say those are the 2 best months if you want to see Wales at its greenest, when everything is flowering. There will be lambs still in the fields. They'll be a bit bigger. They'll be grazing probably by that time, but they'll still be there. So there'll be a lovely bucolic rural Englishness going on. You can get a good dose of that. And then, of course, we got to hit all the bookshops. Obviously, definitely, we have to go to the Cinema Bookshop. That's one of the largest. Also, Richard Booth's bookshop. Absolutely necessary stops. But I also say we got to visit Addyman's. We've got to see the Hay-on-Wye booksellers. And Meg, I know you probably would want to drop in on the Murder and Mayhem shop. And also the Poetry Bookshop, right? Because you need to stock up for Poetry Thursday. That's important. Right. So now we've got the fantasy bit out of the way. The question is still, okay, Heather, but are you going to buy these books for your shelf or what? And what would they be? I do have some ideas for my shelf. And here's what they are. Firstly, what I would love to look out for are 2 good English translations of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And I've been looking at and coveting Emily Wilson's translations. So if they were around, I'm sure I could find them in London, definitely. But, I could wait till Hay and see if I could get a secondhand copy. We'll see. But one way or another, that would be, so I guess that counts as 2 books, 2 of my 10. And then the second thing I do have a copy of Moby Dick, and I do intend to read it, but it's just a little Wordsworth Classics edition with no margin space and nowhere to annotate. And you know me, I love a bit of annotation if a book is worth studying, and Moby Dick would be worth studying. So I would be looking for the Norton Critical Edition of Moby Dick. I'd like that. I'd also like my 4th book would be a biography of George Eliot. And since I'm reading the Oxford Classics version of Middlemarch, and it's got an introduction and notes by Rosemary Ashton, I think I would love to get her biography. So that would be book number 4. Book number 5, Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook. I used to have a copy. I don't know why I got rid of it. I read it once. I think it was a little too early for me to read it. I need to read it again. And I'd also like a book called Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook After 50, which is written by Alice Rideout, Roberta Rubinstein, and Sandra Singer. And it's a fresh analysis of the novel that was published in 2015. So those two together as a twin set, if you like. Book number 7. Book number 7 would be probably the only book that I'd be buying for what it was as a physical object. And that would be Tarot from the Library of Esoterica, which is edited by Jessica Hundley. And you can see from the cover here, it's just a beautiful, beautiful book looking at different tarot decks. And for me, that would be the one excuse for buying a big hardcover book with glossy illustrated pages, because that would be the best way to appreciate all the art that's going to be shown off in that book. So that'd be my book number 7. Book numbers 8 and 9, I really, really would like to get a good survey of American history, but I'm not interested in older works in this case, because I'd actually like to hear some counter opinions. So I want to read These Truths by Jill Lepore and Black AF History by Michael Herriot. Those would, again, be another twin set. I'd like to read through those. And then I'd want to branch out from there and get other books. But that would be sort of my, okay, let's get a good foundation laid, and then we can start looking into things in more depth. And finally, books number 9 and 10, I need to do a shout out to a booktube, not a creator, but someone who does have a channel, but they mostly watch. And that's Rue Masil, who is a teacher, teaches literature in Argentina. And we have had a fantastic back and forth conversation. Yes, for those of you who watched my Tender is the Flesh videos, you remember that I mentioned this booktuber and said, oh my goodness, I wish we could talk about the book. Well, we have in comments. So if you go back to my original review and my Another Helping video about Tender is the Flesh, you will see his comments down in there. And it was really fantastic to talk to him. And he gave me a couple of recommendations for Argentinian works that he really felt I should read. He was very passionate about them. And when somebody's really passionate about a book, that to me is a signal. If I know that they're a reader, they read a lot, and they're passionate about a book, I think, okay, there must be something about this book. I'm going to go get it. So my books 9 and 10 are 2 by Argentinian authors. And one is Bestiary by Julio Cortázar and Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. Those are my 2. So that'd be 10 books on this fantasy bookshelf. But heaven knows, if I have unlimited money, I'm going to buy more than that. But those 10, definitely would like those 10 on my shelf, because I would want to read those. That is the tag done. Now, of course, midweek I am going to do a review, because I've finished an audiobook, everybody. Me expressing all the frustration in my last tag video about how I'm trying to read audiobooks and it's not working. Marianne, writer in Rwanda, she said, why don't you try nonfiction? Because I mentioned to her that I can easily listen to podcasts, no problem. So she said, well, okay, so switched from fiction to nonfiction. Seems an obvious, I should have come up with that idea, but never mind, credit to Marianne. We got there and we listened to a work of nonfiction. Now that's going to create, I think, a very different kind of review, because an audiobook, there are things that you can't say about it because it's not the physical book. And also it could be more difficult for me to go back and get quotes or reread all that stuff. So I might have to combine it with some other things. I would like to give you a progress report on where am I now with War and Peace, because War and Peace is going really well. And I'll do a bit of an advertisement for, hey, everybody, you want to read War and Peace? Do a chapter a day. You'll hardly notice it's happening. It'll be great. You'll have a good time. But I want to talk about the book now, because I'm nearly 200 pages in. So there's some stuff I can talk about. So we'll combine that. I also want to riff a little bit. Joseph Francis Burton, you and I had a one comment conversation about Frankenstein. And I wanted to say more about the book, I think, because I felt that with comments, I tend to, try and keep it short. when maybe I actually could say something better. I do feel like I could say something better about Frankenstein. So I'll try and put together a script that'll be a little bit of audiobook, War and Peace, Frankenstein, okay? I don't know what I'll call that. That sounds like another patchwork, doesn't it? Okay, so patchwork midweek, and then of course next Sunday, it's the third Sunday in February already. Yeah, so it's Middlemarch time. And we are going to do March. So we're coming up to a real incredible, almost Middlemarch binge coming up, but I'm still getting most of my views on those Middlemarch videos, so somebody wants them, so I'm going to keep making them. Anyway, everybody, that's it for today. Thank you for checking in. Hope your reading is going well, and I will talk to you again in a few days' time. Take care. Bye-bye.